it's Mao Zedong with 3,000 years of Chinese culture. Oh, why would you do this? This comes from China's Cultural Revolution, and its goal was to preserve Chinese socialism by purging remnants of capitalism and other traditional elements of Chinese society. Hot take, but I don't like when any sort of history is destroyed, ever. That is a hot take for some people, I will admit. A lot of history is obviously controversial, but when you destroy any sort of it like that, you're destroying our story. You're destroying elements on how we even got here. It's just really sad when it happens. Honestly, burning the previous government's documents is a pretty time-honored tradition in China, if I remember correctly, and let's be real, stuff like this is probably just going to continue. Karl Marx saying Russia will never become a communist nation. Russia becoming the first communist nation in history. The Soviet Union literally be like. Now, to be fair, I don't think Marx technically said Russia will never become communist. He just wanted a more developed nation like Germany to one day be communist. Marx, while early on believed the revolution was impossible in Russia, he would later change his mind, theorizing that perhaps if the peasant class banded together, they'd see the revolution happen. Remember that Marx only lived till 1888. That was a very different Russia too. Senator George F. Howard of Massachusetts being the only senator to vote against the Chinese exclusion in 1902. That passed 76-1. He was the only one that voted against it. The US basically wasn't allowing Chinese immigrants to enter the country. And that senator really hit the nail on the head by saying it's hypocritical for a nation that claimed all men are created equal to exclude classes of people because of their race or nationality. I mean, yeah, you'd think they would have known that. He also ended up going against American imperialism too. The not so fun fact about this whole thing is that a lot of countries did this around that time too. I'm obviously talking about Australia as well. And this is actually why a lot of Japanese people ended up moving to Brazil, which there's still so many Brazilians today with Japanese heritage living here. So it's funny how all these events had an impact and you can still see the effects today. Americans after each world war, woo, it's time to party. Europeans after each world war, well, yeah, not so much for the Europeans though. And it is funny because this did occur both after World War I and World War II. We was having just a grand old time because it's not like any of the fighting was taking place on our continent. Europe was almost always the battleground. Well, to be fair, things got a little more global in World War II, but at the end of the day, no actual fighting took place on the North American continent. So when both those massive wars ended, it's like there was nothing for us to rebuild. We was already good. Meanwhile, everyone else literally destroyed themselves. Poland after each world war would just be an empty field labeled formerly the city of X. Yeah, that's what happens when you hit the geographical lottery. I talk about this all the time. We did. We literally hit the geography lottery. Countries involved at the Treaty of Versailles, or the treaty after World War I. Germany, okay, that makes sense. The UK as well. Yeah, Belgium was involved. Of course, France did a lot of fighting. Italy too. Uruguay. Why exactly was Uruguay? I mean, I guess to be fair, technically Uruguay was included as an allied power. Wait, maybe that map is actually wrong. It says Uruguay was not involved in any fighting during World War I. However, they were one of the nations that severed diplomatic ties with the Central Powers, but didn't fight them directly. So I guess they were kind of an ally. At the end of World War I, the allied nations in Europe realized they urgently needed to improve relations with Latin America. Oh, that's why you did it. Partly because of the opening of the Panama Canal. What's the Joker doing in Hogwarts? Gandalf from Breaking Bad. At least I hope the Uruguayans got at least a little bit of entertainment from that whole treaty. I wonder if they told anyone like, hey, this is probably not gonna work and we're gonna have a World War sequel more than likely now. War of 1812 battles, 113 men are dead. Meanwhile, Napoleonic battles, 200,000 units are ready, with literally 1 million men on their way. I try to point this out to Americans all the time, not to say that the War of 1812 didn't have any significance, but compared to what was happening in the rest of the world, nobody cared. Man, even the British probably didn't care very much. Do you know what was going on in Europe at that time? Napoleon here was just causing absolute chaos. I said the British probably didn't even care about the War of 1812. No, I think they literally didn't. They did not care very much. You literally hear it from them today. They're like, that War of 1812, what the hell? This is what they were fighting against. All this massive, scary France. Like, I'm sorry, but on a world perspective, who gives a crap about the War of 1812 in America? I'm sorry, but also not really. Meanwhile, in China, feel the power of my magic. Oofs, 10 million people in the Battle of the Yellow River Basin. Wasn't this leaf green before? Peru was ruled by a Japanese dictator for 10 years. What? Alberto Fujimori had hundreds of thousands of native women sterilized. What? Jesse, what the hell are you talking about? Oh no, but this is real. We should talk about this. And he literally just passed away too. Generally recognized as a civilian military dictatorship, his government was characterized by its use of propaganda. He was literally sentenced to prison for 25 years. Just a little reminder, those Japanese immigrants didn't just travel to Brazil. There were other South American countries involved. The Dutch just casually discovering the Australian landmass and then leaving it without doing anything. They literally didn't care. This place is just a giant desert. Can you blame them? No, I don't even think they got that far to discover it was just a giant desert, but they did manage to give it the name New Holland and then say, well, whatever, I'm done here. Oh, apparently they did end up concluding that there was a lack of water and fertile soil in the region to make colonization suitable. Meanwhile, the British Empire be like, US Civil War breaks out. Hawaii declares neutrality. Over 100 Hawaiians anyways. They was just trying to have a little bit of fun, I guess. Though they were literally thousands of miles away from the Confederacy and where all the actual battles were happening, there were still hundreds of Hawaiians that decided to join both the North or the South to support literally all of the other Americans be like right now. It had to have just been boredom, right? Everyone focusing on the Maginot Line being useless in World War II. Meanwhile, here are Singapore's guns. The British thought if they put enough giant guns off the coast of Singapore, it would stop the Japanese. Obviously, that did not happen. This is one of the 5 massive 15-inch naval guns that were installed in Singapore, and obviously that did not, in fact, work out for them since, yeah, that Japanese Empire definitely got all of Singapore and pretty much everything around it. This invasion of Iraq looks like BS. I'm staying out of this. I freaking hate you and I hope you die. Oh, thanks for that, America. Yeah, looking back on this whole thing, nice job, France. I remember at the time France getting a lot of poop for this. We briefly renamed French fries to freedom fries. That's how bitter we were. Common French W. And when I say the US here was bitter, I mean bitter. This is crazy looking back at it. You're Benito Mussolini. You just marched on Rome and became the Deuce of the Kingdom of Italy in 1922. Duce. Sorry, I forgot to put the hand effect there. What would you do as leader differently to make Italy as successful as possible? Do fascism without allying to that Hilter weirdo. I mean, Francisco Franco did it like that. Create a harem of wait, what? Create a harem of okay. I know the Italians were obsessed with Ethiopians, but I never knew why. Inside of you, there are 2 Italians. Ethiopian girl harem for the win. Dr. Seuss in his 30s, I write books for children. Dr. Seuss in his 40s, I'll never forgive the Japanese. Dr. Seuss in his 50s, I write books for children. Quite the interesting anti-Japan arc, but I think we all know why. Fun fact, Horton hears a who is an allegory for the reconstruction of a post-war Japan. That is not something I expected to learn. Fun fact, Dr. Seuss was trapped behind enemy lines during the Battle of the Bulge, where he remained for days before British troops were able to push him through and reach him. Oh man, he was making some wild drawings back then too. Yeah. Dutchman has been here. How can you tell? Tulip! It's that simple. They love to mark their territory. And what's a more beautiful way, honestly? The Dutch loved tulips so much, they started the tulip mania in the 17th century. They became incredibly valuable. I mean, if I had such a unique flower like this, I'd probably put it everywhere too. POV, you're chill with everyone. Hey look, Mongols with Buddhists from all over. Mongols with pagans for whatever reason. This is a little interesting image. Mongols with Christians. Wow, look at all their Christian friends. Mongols with Muslims. Even though you would think that that the Muslims, I guess, would eat the Mongols, that doesn't happen. Man, the Mongols were chill with everyone, huh? I guess that's easy when you have the size of the empire that they did. Remember, they were also taking out hundreds of thousands of people. Chill's an interesting word to use, but it is funny that they didn't really care all that much about religion. No direct access to the Silk Road, surrounded by Castile. How can Portugal prosper? Meanwhile, Prince Henry the Navigator. What an amazing time Portugal had throughout history. They just literally went to the sea and then managed to, well, become quite notable, obviously. I mean, just look at the extent of their empire. You wouldn't think that they'd be able to do this. Portuguese colonies at some point were like 10 times the size of Portugal back in Europe. Crazy stuff. Screaming in Chinese. More screaming. Who the frick are you? I thought I hired boxers. Viva la France. Japanese noises. Who the frick are you? I thought I hired boxers. There are 2 very different types of boxers from history. One, the fighters that you probably know as boxers today, but then the boxers here from the Boxer Rebellion. There are actually probably far more boxers from this one rebellion than there are actual modern day boxers. The Qing dynasty's handling of the Boxer Rebellion further further weakened their control over China and led to late Qing reforms. Basically, it all comes back to this propaganda poster as well. This meme sounded funnier in my head. I thought it was pretty funny. I liked it. I don't know how to include this response. I just wanted to put it here for some reason. Big thanks to patrons. Month 1 in Drew's basement. Kansas was mentioned. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. Drew's Argentinian Grandpa. I'm back. Amateur voice. Archaeology. aPhatNarwhal. Carmel S. DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood. InquisitorXarius. KirinoIsBestGirl. Tyrol. The Mexican KingBearHaze. Fredrik Tibblin. And ZaneyBoi.